Don't focus about these pro-Palestine left-wing guys. He said, worry about the neo-Nazi, white supremacist, or right-wing guys that criticize Israel. And I'm not a neo-Nazi, but that's what they call them.
As they call you, yeah.
He said, worry about the white people criticizing Israel. Worry about the patriots. If the MAGA people criticize Israel, you got a problem. And so anyway, the criticism is becoming more mainstream lately. And the other day, Candace Owens does this Twitter space. And listen, I like Candace.
I like Candace a lot. I like Candace a lot too.
I was very brave what she did with Daily Wire, and I supported her during that.
She's been great overall, but I think I know what you're about to go into of her big mistake.
Well, let's be diplomatic about it. She does a Twitter space, and she does Dan Bilzerian, the Tate brothers.
It's super brave of her going on there and doing that.
Yeah. But everybody's in the reply saying, well, you got to invite Nick Fuentes. Ignored. Somebody says, you got to invite Dave Smith. She goes, well, he's invited to everything I do forever. He's so smart. And the glazing of Dave Smith is incredible.
She's ignored you, yeah.
The glazing. Well, and it's not even just about me.
I like you both, think you're both smart, but to ignore you is
I
a
like
little,
Dave. Well, but here's the point. It's not even about ignoring me. Let's be clear about what's happening. She says to Dave, we got to do a 10-part history series. You're so smart. We got to do interviews. You're invited to everything I've ever done. Me? Oh, no interview. No radio silence. No Twitter space. No acknowledgement. But here's the reason why.
He's Jewish?
Dave Smith is Jewish. And what Dave Smith is going to do is go up on the show. And by the way, he's a libertarian. So he's basically liberal. Libertarian's basically right liberal, in political ideology. He's a right liberal who's going to go on the show and say, hey, man, I'm anti-war, like all libertarians are. But because he's Jewish, he can say that the neocons are Jewish. Yeah. No one's going to call him a Nazi because he's Jewish. Yeah. And so all I said the other day, and, people say, why are you attacking him? I'm not attacking him. I'm not attacking him. I'm not even really, I didn't start out attacking Candace. I attacked her a little bit later. But all I said was this. I said, let's call it what it is. The guy's the token Jew. You're bringing it, let's be clear. You're bringing him on to shield you from allegations of anti-Semitism, because if every time you talk about Israel, you're talking about it with the Jew, they can't say you're anti-Semitic.
They bring over the Jewish guys.
And it kind of makes a little bit of sense, but here's why I have a problem with it. It reinforces an attitude, and maybe this is above people's head. Maybe people say you're getting too crazy. Maybe, fair enough. But this is me doing this for a long time. It gets to the point where, there was a big debate that Zero Hedge posted recently between Dave Smith and Laura Loomer on Israel. So you got a Jewish Zionist and a Jewish Zionist
That's kind of funny.
debating on Israel. And it's like, okay, so I think actually the last thing we need is another conversation between two pro-Israel Jews about what America should do. Can't we have non-Jewish people talk about this subject? Can't we have, and here's the thing. People said, well, that's not true. That's not true at all. Dave Smith is being brought along because he's really smart. I said, really? I go back through his tweets, and, he responds to Charlotte Clymer, this transgender, talking about, whatever. And Dave Smith says, well, I happen to be an authority on the Holocaust because my ancestors died there. So, yeah, I could. And then there's another tweet. And he says, well, if you don't want to get slapped, don't call a Jewish person a Nazi. So it's like clearly that indicates he has an attitude, which everyone else has, that if you're Jewish, it's against the rules to call that person a Nazi for obvious reasons. Yeah. So that's kind of like not fair that a Jewish person can say that the neocons are Jewish and that there's an Israel lobby. And if someone calls him a Nazi, he could play the Holocaust card. I'm playing a red card, Holocaust, I'm Jewish.
Parents, Holocaust survivors, that's just so played out.
But if a white person who's like a patriot, not a libertarian, but a nationalist who wants to use the government to help America comes out and says, the neocons are Jews. Well, I get crushed by Jewish power. I get crushed by the ADL. I get crushed by the SPLC. I don't get a card to play, a victim card where I say, oh, racism, anti-Semitism, Holocaust. And all I said is it really helpful to reinforce and perpetuate that dynamic? So this may be a subtle thing, but it's so important. When you realize these truths, everybody wants to say, hey, man, I'm not anti-Semitic. Hey, man. And how do they reinforce that? They say, well, I'm not anti-Semitic. I have a Jewish person approving of this. And, it's kind of like with the race issue. It's not that we need to prove to, these bad faith liars, because that's what they are. Yeah. I don't need to prove to a bad faith actor that I'm not an anti-Semite, because that's a fake word, and the definition is always changing.
It's always changing, and only as you can decide.
Exactly. That's what they say. They're like, well, anti-Semitism means if you think the gospel's true, that the Jews killed Jesus, and anti-Semitism.
Yeah, they literally said that's crazy. Or if you don't support the state of Israel, it's insane stuff like that.
If you don't support Israel, so it's like, I don't want to prove I'm not an anti-Semite, because if I'm doing that, I'm in their paradigm, and if I'm doing that, I'm having an approved criticism of Israel. So what we need to do is just bypass that and say, I don't care. Because this is what happens is, like on Twitter, for example, they say, we're going to ban anti-Semites. And everybody endeavors to say, well, here's all the reasons I'm not anti-Semitic. Here's my argument. We should let speech that people call anti-Semitic, that should be allowed to be said on Twitter, because we have a First Amendment.
Yeah, it's not illegal to be anti-Semitic.
Exactly.
Especially when it really criticism of Israel, not saying Jesus, the Talmud, which is true, all this stuff.
So you need to bypass that entirely. And by the way, it already happened to Candace. And this was and I want to clarify. I think Candace is very intelligent. I think she's courageous. Look, I'm Italian. I get a little fired up, and it is personal. It's deeply personal to me. Not walking it back at all, but good with the bad. I think she's very intelligent, very courageous. And Dave Smith, he's a very smart guy.
So
and
you don't dislike Dave. You guys
absolutely
had
not.
just a little minor spat. Okay.
No, but it's like this on social media.
I've known Dave for years. He's been a good guy. So
you critique people, and people take it personally.
Yeah, I get into it sometimes with people too. I'm hot-headed too.
And
sometimes I genuinely don't like these people. Other times I do. But sometimes I see when someone like Jordan Peterson's daughter calling to get me banned from Twitter. Like, really?
Exactly.
You're talking about free speech and you want me banned? She probably called you to get banned too, but she used one of my names. Like, oh, come on. Or what was it? Is it not Oliver Stone? What's the Stone guy?
Roger Stone?
Roger Stone. Someone goes, what do you think? Does Candace Owens, Nick Fuentes, and Jake Shields, are they be part of the Republican Party? And he goes, no. So then I went after him, and he's like, I'm going to sue you. I'm like, oh, okay, buddy. That sounds a little bit,
Yeah, right. Very litigious. Who is that? Who does that?
And then he acts like I'm attacking him when he says, I have no business in the Republican Party. It's like, I don't want in your shitty party anyways.
Right.